Welcome to the Economic Development Council's Vision of Progress. I'm your host, Nathan Sparks, and today we'll be visiting with John Hofstad, Interim County Administrator for Okaloosa County. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Nathan.
Well, let me start by congratulating you on being named Interim Administrator for Okaloosa County. You've obviously won the trust of the County Commission. That has to feel good.
Yeah, it does, absolutely, and I am certainly appreciative of the board's support and looking forward as we move this county forward. So.
Absolutely. Well, you have a strong professional background. You've been in government services, local government services for 30 years now. Why don't you share a little bit with our audience about your professional background, if you would?
Certainly. I started my career in local government back in 1986 and actually started for the small town of Mary Esther here in the south end of Okaloosa County. And I was a young 20-year-old trying to search for my calling in life, and I believe I found that in local government, and certainly it was very rewarding 10 years I spent there. I started in a labor capacity. I was a laborer in their public works department, and picked up some certifications along the way and started managing their water facilities and their sewer facilities, and spent the last 3 years there as their public works director, and moved to Fort Walton Beach in 1996 as an operations manager, and spent again 14 years over there in multiple capacities, and I finished my career over there the last 4 years as their utilities director. And then I was hired by the county in January of 2010 as Public Works Director, and I've been with the county since.
Okay, so your career has in total been here in Okaloosa County?
All of my knocking on 30 years have been here in Okaloosa County, yes, working for two municipalities initially, and culminating to where I am today with Okaloosa County, and currently serving in the capacity of Interim County Administrator.
Outstanding. So the county administrator, our viewers might not be familiar with that particular language in referring to your position, but it's essentially the CEO of Okaloosa County. Might be a good way to think about it. And to kind of further illustrate that, you have, as the CEO of the county, interim CEO of the county, mind you, but CEO nonetheless, you have responsibility for all the employees of Okaloosa County, 850 give or take as I understand it.
Right.
You have responsibility for a budget that's in excess of $300 million.
Right.
That's a lot to keep tabs on. How do you do it?
Yeah, it's kind of curious as I reflect back on my career. I can recall the first budget I ever prepared as a public works director at Mary Esther was done on a legal pad, and
right.
We were just entering the computer age in the early 90s, and so developed a budget by hand, and that budget was less than $1 million. And I look at the budgets we have today. The budget that I've prepared each year for public works, as an example, that's a $42 million budget in public works. And,
wow.
And, to give you a scale of that budget, the last budget that I was a part of at Fort Walton Beach before I left in 2010, the overall budget for the city was $36 million. So I manage a budget for a department that's in excess of what the entire budget was for the city. So, and now, it's a change of scope, a change of focus. I moved from more a narrowly defined scope with public works and all the ancillary support of public works, be it facility maintenance or fleet operations, the IS department, ag extension, to now having to be more broadly focused over the entire organization, all of our various aspects of local government. Because, again, in local government, there's a hierarchy of needs, just like there is at your home.
Sure.
And, at the top of that list is public safety. So we certainly need to give a budget focus to public safety. That's not only our internal public safety through the BCC and EMS support services and the like, but also the sheriff's office and that constitutional relationship we have with that constitutional officer. So. Right. Then you have your essential services, public works and water and sewer and growth management. And you have your non-essential services. And over the years, that's, as we've had to make cuts in the lean years, that's where we've made cuts. But yeah, it's it's much more intense from a perspective that you have to, you can't be that technical expert in any one field. You have to be looking at things from a 30,000-foot view and planning for the future and working with your elected officials as we plan for the future of this county.
Absolutely, and I know that part of your function as Public Works Director was to oversee facilities maintenance. Mm-hmm. I know that right now we have 3 long-awaited capital improvement projects underway. We've got the new admin complex in Shalimar, the addition of the Sheriff's Office also in Shalimar, and then we've got the long-awaited renovation of the courthouse in Crestview. All 3 very high-level, important projects. Talk to us about the status of those, if you would, John, and why they're each important in their own right.
Yeah, and this is a direction the board has been taking for some time now in addressing our space needs and facility needs in this county. And as you probably know and may have heard, we have quite a bit of lease space in this county, both with the BCC offices and the constitutional officers and
right.
The tax collector and property appraiser. They lease space over in the Uptown Station shopping area. The BCC leases space back from water and sewer at the admin building there on Lewis Turner. Collectively, we're somewhere in the ballpark of $750,000 in annual lease fees. And you got to ask yourself, and does it make better sense to utilize those lease dollars to actually own a space? So you're not paying lease fees in perpetuity. You can apply those dollars to some long-term debt for a facility that one day you're going to own. So that was kind of the direction the board took with the administrative complex that we're building in Shalimar. If you've been through Shalimar, you'll see that building's going up now. The steel is in place. You'll have a 3-story tower connected to a single story that'll house the BCC chambers, the Board of County Commissioners office space, the administrator, legal counsel. Also in that building will be the tax collector, the property appraiser, supervisor of elections will be in there. There'll be additional BCC functions. Growth Management Department will have a presence in that building, our IS department. So we're able to take those functions of local government, be it BCC offices or constitutional offices that are currently paying some pretty significant annual lease fees, and place those operations in a building that at the end of a 20-year period the county will own, and it'll be a building that the county's proud of. So that's one project.
Right.
The sheriff has his space needs as well. He has his complex there in Shalimar that is, he's packed to the gills in his space as well, and needs to be able to expand that. So we have another project that's lumped in with the admin building, and that's an expansion of the sheriff's office space. So he'll be able to move some of his administrative functions into that new office space. Some of the space needs that were previously taken care of in the old Shalimar courthouse, where we had a presence in that building, will now be relocated to this new office space. So that's 2 of the projects. And lastly, we have the Crestview courthouse in Crestview, the county seat, and you're talking about a facility that's decades old.
Built in the 50s, as I understand.
A building that's 60 plus years old, and when you're in that building, you recognize very quick that it's a 1950s, 60s era construction. It doesn't meet current code. It doesn't meet current American with Disabilities Act requirements for construction. Right. It's not a user-friendly building. And then we have the issue with the growth in this county being centralized in the Crestview and northern part of the county, for the most part, where the highest growth is. Well, you're seeing a growth in the court docket as well. So we need a program for that need in the future. So we're looking at an addition to that building up there, where we'll be able to construct a couple new courtrooms. We'll temporarily relocate those that are occupied in the current space into a new wing, and then remodel the existing courthouse. So another project that has been a long time coming, much needed for this county, and will posture this county for future growth. Absolutely,
I agree wholeheartedly. Now let me ask you, the admin complex in Shalimar, will that also include new commission chambers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, currently, as you know, the board occupies space in the Water and Sewer Administrative Building on Lewis Turner. The board has their office space on the first floor of that building, and the third floor of that building is what we currently utilize for the County Commission chambers. So the new facility in Shalimar, the single-story wing of that facility, will house the new BCC chambers. It'll be a much more interactive chamber than what we currently have.
It's pretty tight.
Yeah, a better experience for the public, and that's
Right.
that's what we're geared toward, is making the experience better for the public. Keying in on the issues of transparency and open government, and have a facility that is more accessible to the public for conducting county business.
Sure. Excellent. So obviously 3 critical projects. Are there any other capital projects? We're going to talk about transportation in the next segment, but any other bricks and mortar capital projects on the near horizon for the county?
Those are the big building projects
Right.
that we have going forward, and those address the majority of the space needs we have. I mean, we have some aging facilities. I can look at the Public Works facility in Crestview. I mean, the facility that our Public Works department occupies is again, a 1950s, 60s era old DOT building there in
Right.
the south end of Crestview. So while we don't currently have plans for a new space for Public Works, you're possibly looking at, some remodeling efforts up there. But, for the most part, the projects that we've identified are the projects that we are addressing right now as far as the county space needs.
Excellent. Excellent. We're going to hear more about transportation when we come back from our break. If you'd stay with us, we'll be back shortly to talk with John about transportation systems in Okaloosa County, among other things. We'll be right back.
Our commitment to the community is something that we believe in and act on every single day. It's a key part of our culture and who we are as a company.
Cox donates millions of dollars in cash and in-kind services to support local nonprofit and civic organizations each year. We recognize that a healthy community is a growing community. Here's a look at just a few of the organizations we support right here in Northwest Florida.
We're extremely proud of all these local partnerships.
Together, we are working to make the Gulf Coast thrive.
This bridge has been standing its ground since 1937. Do you know how? Flexibility. It's built with a capacity to sway over 27 feet from side to side. It's the same with business. No matter which way the wind blows, you must remain flexible. Choose a partner who can flex with you. Cox Business.
Welcome back to the Economic Development Council's Visions of Progress. I'm your host, Nathan Sparks, and today we're talking with John Hofstad, Interim County Administrator for Okaloosa County. John, welcome back.
Thank you.
We were talking about various things before we broke. We were talking about some capital projects. Capital projects are one aspect of a growing county, obviously needing new, more modern buildings, but clearly our county is growing, and there are a lot of reasons for that. From our low unemployment to our desirable quality of life that draws people here, to our continuing influx of military families, a whole host of reasons why people seek out Okaloosa County, and we're obviously pleased for that. But obviously, with a growing county comes some challenges. Could you talk to us about some of those challenges?
Well, you're right, and we have. Fortunately, we've seen some growth as we program our revenue and expenditure needs for the coming year. The last 2 years, a very slight uptick in growth the year before last, and this current year, this current budget year we're in, we're actually programmed a little over 3% increase in growth. So yes, we are seeing it, and you're absolutely right. It brings an entirely new set of challenges to us. While we welcome the visitors that come here each year, and we welcome the transplants that move from out of the area to our county. It opens up a host of different, and in some cases competing needs here in the county. You've got to be able to safely move people around, so your transportation infrastructure is key. you have to have adequate sanitary sewer and potable water to service that need. So those needs are serviced in large part by the DOT for some of our state roadways, the balance of that falling on the counties and local governments and municipalities and the interior roadway network. And then water and sewer, obviously the county has its own water and sewer utility, as do most of our municipalities. So having that suitable infrastructure along with the education infrastructure you need to support the people that are transplants to our county, and that 98 corridor, that tourist corridor down in the south end, being able to, as you know, in the height of the summer, trying to safely move people along 98, up 85, and our major north, south, east, west corridors. So that certainly is key for us.
Well, you mentioned transportation systems, and there's been a lot of community dialogue about transportation systems here over the past year or so in particular. From the Brooks Bridge, the fact that we obviously have aging infrastructure there that will need to be replaced at some point. You mentioned the Highway 98 gridlock in Destin that we experienced during the peak season. We've all experienced the gridlock in Crestview around rush hour. And we know that eventually there's going to have to be something to alleviate that traffic problem, and there's been discussion about a bypass, another great project concept. And these are all three very big projects in their own right, very significant in their own right. So how do we go about the task of prioritizing those projects?
Well, depending on where you live, it's priority number one.
Sure.
It affects you.
Right.
So certainly all of those projects that you have identified are top priorities for us, but at the end of the day, you've got to be able to fund it.
Right.
With the issues with Highway 98 and Brooks Bridge, that's an FDOT corridor, a Florida Department of Transportation corridor. It's a federally funded roadway in Highway 98. So there's a federal component to it, a state component, and the local government's impact on those decisions. With the bridge project itself, we all saw in this county here, oh gosh, it's been probably a year and a half ago now, the barge versus bridge collision, which shut down Highway 98 through Fort Walton Beach for several hours while crews were able to come in and engineering teams were able to come in and inspect that bridge and make some spot repairs to be able to reestablish that traffic flow. So, but that incident is not what led us to the point where we are today with studying Brooks Bridge. That has been a discussion that's been ongoing in this community now for 20 plus years. Right. And we understand where the bottlenecks are. We understand where the traffic impacts are and where our traffic shortcomings are as far as capacity. And that is a major capacity need along that corridor. That's again a Florida Department of Transportation project that they'll take the lead on. They are currently, and I believe just this past week, have selected a PD&E, a Planning, Development, and Environment consulting firm to start that process with a two-pronged approach. A replacement of Brooks Bridge in its current alignment, so a retrofit of that bridge, if you will, rehab of that bridge, and then another parallel structure, be it to the east, the west, or along that current alignment to address the capacity needs. Because what we're seeing is you have two major roadways coming in from the north with Highway 85 to some extent, and some areas to the west in the western Fort Walton Beach and Mary Esther area, and the Highway 98 corridor, and all of that traffic funneling into one 4-lane bridge. Right. So, how do we address that? Do we expand the bridge in its current footprint and allow 6 lanes of travel? How do you do that and still maintain traffic flow to the island uninterrupted? Do you do some combination of both, where you do a replacement bridge or a rehabilitation of that existing bridge, and then you look to a bridge further to the west to connect to Santa Rosa Boulevard, or further to the east taking off from Hollywood Boulevard and landing on 98, so on the island? So critical needs in and around Destin, with the congestion in Destin during the summer months. And as you pointed out, P.J. Adams and a bypass around Crestview. I would tell you from the county's perspective, that's one of our, if not our #1 capacity need in this county. While we have some influence on Highway 98, and Daniel Werfel Way in Destin, and Highway 85, those are all roads that are part of the state roadway and state road network, and not necessarily responsibilities locally of Okaloosa County. P.J. Adams is a county road.
It's a different story.
And we see, my office having been in Crestview for several years now, but having lived in the south end, I can tell you the congestion we see in Crestview is every bit as critical as the congestion we see along Highway 98.
Right.
So we need to be able to safely move traffic in and around Crestview. The P.J. Adams alignment connecting 85 to 90 on the western end of Crestview and expanding that capacity from a 2-lane segment to a 4-lane segment, very much needed. DOT will tell you that's very much needed to alleviate congestion on their roadway network.
Right.
So those are all the various issues we take into account when we plan for capacity improvements, transportation improvements in this county going forward.
Absolutely, and we appreciate the job you do there. Obviously, transportation systems are foundational to successful economic development. You and I have talked about this many times. We have to have sound infrastructure to be competitive. And I want to compliment the county, 2 projects in particular that are geared toward doing just that. Fairchild Road, the paving of Fairchild Road, of course on the east side of the Bob Sikes Airport, serving one of our large manufacturing employers, L3 Crestview Aerospace. That's a project that the county has funded and is moving forward with. And then certainly in that same vein, the Foy Shaw Parkway that will connect Highway 90 to the airport, unencumbered, unimpeded. That, again, will have major economic development benefits for Bob Sikes Airport, which, you know, we have a strong opinion that Bob Sikes can be a great player in the aerospace arena. It already is in many respects, but certainly with projects like Airbus and others in our region, we believe that Bob Sikes has an opportunity to attract major economic development opportunities, and those projects are going to be important.
Absolutely. You know, this conversation, I'm glad you picked up on that. This conversation we had when you first came on board.
Right.
And certainly I see our economic diversity and our ability to draw in you know, additional commercial industrial development to this county and not be solely dependent on the tourism industry that we have in the south end of the county, or the DOD and DOD support element of our county. Opening up all of that land in and around Bob Sikes Airport there in Crestview, and the potential it has to bring in some of these aerospace support industries into our area, and specifically Crestview, you got to have the infrastructure in place, and you've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to move commercial traffic from that interstate interchange there in Crestview safely into Bob Sikes. Highway 90 is a 4-lane section east of Crestview to that point, but we're routing traffic through Fairchild Road in a residential neighborhood.
Right.
And that's not always well received by your public. So Foy Shaw, that alignment, it'll be a virgin alignment, a new alignment off of Highway 90, and allow for the movement of that commercial traffic so we can expose and open up those areas around Bob Sikes Airport. So it's important, very important to this county, the community in general, and our county seat there in Crestview, and Fairchild. Again, a connector between Airport Road and Highway 90, which will serve as kind of a western, or excuse me, an eastern bypass around Crestview, if you will. Mm-hmm. So right now, one half of Fairchild Road is a dirt road and one half of it's paved. So we have a project in the works. We have an engineering consultant working that project now. We expect a completed deliverable for the design of that project very soon. We have dollars programmed in the budget for construction, so we expect, and I expect to see that project moving forward as we move into the new year, and we'll have a new roadway, you know, hardened surface that'll again open up the eastern side of that airport property. And that, in conjunction with what we're doing with Foy Shaw, again, we have the consultant on board. A little different process because we have that PD&E component. We have to plan for the impacts to the environment before we can launch into the engineering and design. But the consultant's on board, and the consultant is moving full steam ahead with that effort too. So very, very key projects to the further development in this county.
Absolutely, no question. Let's shift gears to the military if we can. We all know what an important impact Eglin and Hurlburt and Duke have on our local area. A $7 billion, that's billion with a B, economic impact on our local area. So clearly an impact that we need to do everything we can to support and sustain. Right. And we're doing that in a lot of ways, and the county's doing that. And you all recently announced your acquisition of some, or your plans to acquire some acreage using some grant dollars, which will serve to buffer Duke Field and Eglin installation proper. And I want to thank you for doing that, but I'd like to get your views on why that's so important to our area.
Well, it serves both interests. You know, it serves the military interest by, exactly as you said, providing that buffer for Duke Field and the missions in and out of Duke Field, but also it serves a need for the county as we continue to buy up land in and around Shoal River for an alternative water supply. So each of those purchases goes toward that end goal. We can't always be dependent on the Floridan aquifer where we take our water supply from now. We've seen a significant drawdown in the Floridan aquifer and that water source. So we have to plan for the future needs of this county. And how do we do that? We potentially do that through surface water. So yes, we brought to the board recently a purchase of, 900 plus acres along Shoal River. So serves the military community, serves the civilian community as well.
And certainly we thank the state. They were a key partner in providing the grant funds to this project through the Defense Investment Grant.
Right.
So a key player there. Before we close, and we've got just a couple of seconds left, but I know 2015 is a big year for the county. It's the centennial of Okaloosa County. You've got 2 new commissioners coming on the board. Very quickly, if you could, what can we look forward to in 2015 from the county?
Well, again, you've got the major construction projects, those space needs we have here in the county, completing those projects. We launch into a new calendar year with 2 new commissioners, so we're anxious to see their direction going forward and working with our current remaining 3 commissioners. So, you know, my plan is to move this county forward, continue to move the county forward, make advancements. You know, take the lessons learned from the Auditor General and further make this county a better place to live, work, and play, more transparent and more open to our citizens here in the county.
Well said, and we certainly appreciate everything you do in that role, John. We appreciate our partnership that the Economic Development Council has with Okaloosa County. We look forward to a great year ahead.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
We've been talking with John Hofstad, Interim County Administrator of Okaloosa County. We've learned a lot about our county's direction, and we look forward to an exciting year here in Okaloosa County. Thank you for watching the Economic Development Council's Vision of Progress, and we'll see you next time.